minds in the video game industry are as well respected as that of Hideo Kojima. With Metal Gear Solid, he cemented himself as a visionary, but just as creative as the games he makes are the marketing efforts that lead up to their release. Death Stranding is no exception. Some might describe the game's numerous and cryptic trailers as excessive or indulgent, but there's no denying that the mystery behind Death Stranding has only bolstered the anticipation for its November 8th release. But what do we actually know about the game? After examining all the trailers and several interviews given by Kojima himself, you might actually be surprised. Sure, there are a ton of theories floating around, and it was impossible not to formulate a few of my own when making this video, but that's not my focus. My goal here is to highlight the facts first, and only then did I go beyond the facts to draw reasonable conclusions. So, if you're curious about anything related to Kojima's latest opus, then you're in the right place. I've squeezed as much as I can into one mammoth preview. So kick back, maybe subscribe to the channel, and join me as I look at everything we know about the world, the characters, and the gameplay of Death Stranding. Built within the Decima engine, which was used to create Horizon Zero Dawn, the open world of Death Stranding is beautiful, barren, and soaked in realism. You'll explore an array of areas set across a post-apocalyptic version of the USA, which for reasons unexplained is known within the game as the United Cities of America, or the UCA. We've seen everything from grassy meadows and rocky chasms to shattered cities and snow-covered mountains. But let's be honest, while the settings look amazing, it's not the graphics or diverse locations that make Death Stranding so interesting. It's what's happening within the world itself. And we've gotten a pretty good, if brief, description of just that directly from Sony. Here's the game's synopsis as posted on its official page within the PlayStation Store. In the near future, mysterious explosions have rocked the planet, setting off a series of supernatural events known as the Death Stranding. With spectral creatures plaguing the landscape and the planet on the verge of a mass extinction, it's up to Sam Bridges to journey across the ravaged wasteland and save mankind from impending annihilation. So let's break that down, starting with the aforementioned explosions, which are called voidouts. We know that voidouts are caused by the otherworldly creatures also mentioned in the synopsis. These creatures are known as beached things, or BTs for short. In addition to causing voidouts, they're invisible to the naked eye, and they appear to hunt humans as they wander between our reality and some alternate realm. So, what is this alternate realm? Well, here's where things get a bit crazy, so stick with me. Based on everything we've seen, it's not unreasonable to think that this other realm, where the BTs might originate, could be some form of purgatory or the afterlife. For one, we know that when Sam is killed by a BT, he's sent directly to the afterlife as seen here, before finding his way back to the land of the living. We've also seen certain monsters that appear to be able to cross over from this alternate realm to the real world. And then there are the bridge babies, incubated human infants that let you detect BTs by connecting to what the game refers to as, quote, the other side. And finally, this line from the most recent trailer makes it clear that certain people and characters in Death Stranding will have some connection to Hades, a label often reserved for the underworld. Still with me? Good. But with Hideo Kojima at the height of his creativity, things get even weirder. The trailers for Death Stranding reveal other elements, quite literally, that have helped destroy the planet. Appearing in every trailer is this black, tar-like substance, and whenever it appears, bad stuff happens. For example, here a bunch of BTs take Sam straight to hell, and then there's this guy, and here we see the same substance kicked up by some invisible creature that appears to be chasing you down. Oh, and both of the game's main villains seem to bring a flood of the stuff wherever they go. Yet perhaps the most imaginative and terrifying addition to this new world is Timefall. A new and deadly form of weather that looks just like rain, but rather than merely soak the landscape, it rapidly accelerates the passage of time on anything it touches. Step into some timefall and you'll age decades in a matter of seconds. We've also learned that timefall either causes the presence of BTs or vice versa. One more thing to note about the world is this group of 5 mysterious floating figures who have popped up in numerous trailers. They look a little similar to beached things, but they appear almost as deities or some form of watchful, collective mastermind. Ultimately, their identity remains a mystery. Moving back to Sony's short synopsis of the game, it did raise some eyebrows by referring to the apocalypse in general as, quote, the Death Stranding. What the Death Stranding is hasn't been specifically explained, but it was likely named after a phenomena called cetacean stranding, a process by which marine life literally strands or beaches itself on the seashore. Kojima hasn't been subtle about showing this phenomena in multiple trailers. One common theory, and one that I happen to agree with, is that BTs, or beached things, are undead organisms that are stranded somewhere between the world of the dead and our world, and that this has triggered some sort of worldwide catastrophe. Make of that what you will, but whatever the Death Stranding is, it definitely involves otherworldly creatures, and it seems to have destroyed the Earth's infrastructure and disconnected its communities in such a way that they can't fight back. Kojima himself has reinforced this theory with a quote that was recently posted to the PlayStation blog, where he said, quote, "The goal of the player is to reconnect isolated cities and a fragmented society." It's tough to explain more about what's happening within Death Stranding without getting into gameplay details, and not to worry, the last half of this video is devoted to just that. But we can learn a lot more about the world Kojima has built by looking at the characters he's created. Death Stranding's main protagonist is Sam Porter Bridges. This name is a bit on the nose, as Sam is a transporter by trade, and he works for an organization named Bridges. Bridges appears to be a government organization, as the latest trailer shows its logo emblazoned on the floor of the Oval Office. But it's not clear whether Bridges is named after Sam or whether the name is pure coincidence. Anyhow, there are 2 reasons why Sam would be chosen for the task of reconnecting America. One is his profession. If the world's infrastructure has been destroyed, rebuilding the nation would require getting a lot of supplies, not to mention information, from one place to another. Second, we know that Sam is imbued with certain special abilities. Here he seems immune to some mysterious reversal of gravity, and some dialogue in the 2018 E3 trailer reveals that Sam has something called the extinction factor, which we unfortunately know nothing about, and a condition called dooms, which enables Sam to sense the presence of BTs.
So, you have dooms, like me. What's your level?
I've got the extinction factor, but I think you got me beat.
You can see them, right?
No, but I can sense them.
Lastly, 2 more details about Sam. One is this cross-shaped scar across his abdomen, the same scar which can be seen on this floating baby doll. 2, Sam wears this necklace which seems to act as a key to certain control panels, and it features etchings of several quantum equations, one of which is used by real-life astrophysicists to determine the radius of black holes. If you want to come up with a few crazy theories, now would be the time. Next up is Cliff, one of the game's 2 main villains, who also has special powers, but they're far more powerful than anything Sam can brag about. In the 2016 Game Awards trailer, he literally disintegrates his military equipment with the touch of his fingers. Even more intriguing is that he appears to have control over these soldiers, who, judging by the glow in their eyes, are definitely not human. Given the game's likely connection to the afterlife, or even to hell itself, these might be some form of the undead. Also, in at least 2 scenes, we've seen Cliff emerge from the black liquid, further suggesting that you should run like hell whenever you see it. If all that wasn't bizarre enough, some clips featuring Cliff and his undead army seem to take place during World War I. Does this mean that the game will span different eras of history? Are these dream sequences? Or is this yet another alternate dimension? Your guess is as good as mine, but one thing to note is that much of the military equipment, such as this tank, are manifested via the same smoldering cinders that appeared when Cliff made his helmet disappear. Oh, he's also got a glowing version of that cross-shaped scar, and he's fireproof. Sticking with the bad guys, the other villain we know about in Death Stranding, and one that I think looks much scarier, is Higgs. Played by Troy Baker, Higgs is the leader of a group called the Homo Demons, a terrorist organization fighting against the government, or at least what's left of it. What sets the Homo Demons apart is that they're somehow capable of weaponizing void-outs. As for Higgs himself, it looks like he'll have the ability to summon Timefall, and as a result, the dreaded BTs. Basically, he can control all the scary stuff in the game. Moreover, he appears to be able to teleport, and like Cliff, Higgs also has a connection to the other dimension, and in this clip here we see him use that connection via his apparently superpowered mask to summon a very scary creature. The gold material of the mask seems to be important. Not only is it the same material covering this creature's face, it's also seen on the face of this corpse seen in the Game Awards trailer from 2017, which begins convulsing right before Higgs arrives. If all this wasn't scary enough, Higgs also has a sense of humor, giving him a little bit of a Joker vibe.
Well, shit. I had a special surprise prepped and everything. But it looks to me like your hands are full. It's no biggie. We can always tweak the rules a bit.
Next up is Fragile, who thankfully is on your side. Here we see her coming to Sam's aid as he encounters a BT. She seems to have more experience dealing with the spectral beings than he does, but that doesn't stop her from offering him a job, which he declines. What's interesting is that Fragile seems to know Sam's name before he knows anything about her. How does she know him? Has she been following Sam? We also see that Fragile has this high-tech umbrella on which we see the words Fragile Express, handled with love. This seems to indicate that, like Sam, Fragile is a courier. We also know that she's of some importance to Higgs because, seen here, he's not only holding her captive, he's, well, licking her face. Lastly, we know that Fragile also has Dooms, the same ability that enables Sam to sense BTs. Not much is known about the next character, Amelie, but there is one line of dialogue in the release date reveal trailer where we hear a voice say this.
Sam, we want you to go west and finish what Amelie started.
Given that Sam's mission is to reconnect and rebuild America, it's likely that Amelie has been trying to do just that. But this also makes it sound as if she's failed, which makes sense given that in this clip we see that Higgs has apparently captured her as well. In another appearance, Amelie can be seen crying tears of blood. In previous trailers, we've seen many instances of good guys crying transparent tears and villains crying black tears, so this seems to set Amelie apart in some way. As for what that might be, again, your guess is as good as mine. One of the most peculiar characters revealed thus far, Bridget, is actually the President of the United Cities of America, and she's seen here in the Oval Office on what might be her deathbed. It looks like she and Sam have a friendship, and in this scene, Bridget is pleading with Sam to head west and rebuild, and it's worth noting that Sam seems awfully skeptical that her plan will work. But what makes Bridget super intriguing is that she's played by Lindsay Wagner, the same actor who plays Amelie. We don't know if there's any connection between the two, but given that timefall causes rapid aging, and that time travel might exist in this universe, it's not out of the question. Plus, it would seem out of character for Hideo Kojima to cast the same actor for multiple roles without some reason for doing so. Now we're getting into the characters we know much less about, starting with Die Hardman, who is apparently Sam's boss within the Bridges organization. We've only seen him wearing this mask, which I think is interesting given that it's in the shape of a skull, not too dissimilar from the mask worn by Higgs and the undead soldiers commanded by Cliff. Skull imagery clearly plays an important role in this world. Next is Deadman, who we got our first look at all the way back in 2016. He's seen here connecting to a Bridge baby, and he's wearing a Bridge's pin, so it's likely that he's part of the Bridge's organization. He also has this scar across his forehead, which must be of some significance. We also know that Deadman's role in the game will be rather large. At the 2018 Tokyo Game Show, it was revealed that he may have more lines in the Death Stranding script than any other character. Next is Mama, who appears to be a scientist who has some connection to beings from the alternate realm. We don't know much other than that, but in a trailer analysis by Yang Ya, Yang seemed to think that this organism in her hands seemed to be a baby being delivered. I personally can't make out the likeness, but we do see what looks like a baby in this clip here. Anyhow, if she can deliver babies from the other world, that would definitely give her name some context. Also, Sam can be seen literally carrying Mama on his back in this clip from the 2018 trailer from the Tokyo Game Show. The last character we've seen is Heartman, who might be the most unique of all the characters we've met so far. We learned at a recent Comic-Con presentation that Heartman has a condition that stops his heart every 20 minutes, killing him and sending him to the realm of the dead. It's there that he spends 3 minutes after each death desperately searching for his apparently dead family before a permanently attached defibrillator revives him in the realm of the living. This shot here shows Heartman alive and hooked up to the defibrillator, and here we see him likely during one of his visits to the realm of the dead, as he is presumably dragged back to the realm of the living, away from what I'm guessing is a group of spirits. So that's the cast as we know it currently, and now that we've had a good look at the world and the characters, we'll be able to make a little more sense of the gameplay. Let's check it out. We know that Death Stranding will be, if nothing else, a third-person open-world experience about reconnecting cities across America. To do this, it looks like you'll be traveling across what might be the entire country either on foot or on this futuristic-looking motorcycle. Unfortunately, we don't know much about the bike, but we know that when you're on foot, certain tools look to heavily impact the gameplay. First is this ladder, which extends up to 10 meters. Second is your climbing anchor, which consists of a metal stake that you can drive into the ground, and a rope that you can use to rappel down or up steep cliffs. Note these numbers above each item and its description. I thought at first this might indicate a leveling system for your items, but when Sam places his climbing anchor, the number changes from 1 to 0, so perhaps this indicates just how many items in your inventory, which would also imply that these items are disposable. Lastly, while it doesn't look like a traversal item, we got a very brief glimpse of this thing, which sheds its casing to become what looks like some sort of rifle and scope. We also see in the background what might be an enemy encampment or one of the communities that Sam is on his way to visit. As for the specific cargo you're delivering, it's anybody's guess. My hunch is that your deliveries will vary throughout the game, but will mostly consist of a lot of important communication and infrastructure technology in addition to crucial survival supplies. As seen here, you might even have to transport human bodies. And unlike most games where inventory items magically disappear into your outfit, items in Death Stranding actually affect the size and even the shape of your pack. Whether or not you can become over-encumbered isn't clear, but we have seen this little guy, which might be able to help carry more cargo than you're able to lift. One last thing we know about traversing the game's environment is that you'll actually be able to help other players across the world through some sort of cooperative experience. In a description of the game that first appeared on the UK's PlayStation Store but has since been mysteriously deleted, a paragraph read, quote, "Help other travelers without ever crossing paths via asynchronous online gameplay. Send supplies, share safe houses, and walk in the footsteps of fellow couriers to reunite civilization." End quote. One thing to note here is the mention of safe houses. We haven't seen any of these explicitly, but perhaps that's where Sam is here as he bathes after an obviously long and difficult journey. In any case, not only will you be connecting with NPCs in the game, you'll also be connecting with other players. Kojima has also confirmed that there won't be any PvP in Death Stranding, so if you want to fight, you'll have to do it on your own. Thankfully, it looks like you'll have plenty of opportunities. We know that you'll be fighting a lot of supernatural creatures in Death Stranding, but you'll be fighting a human threat as well. Some are likely to work for the Homo demons, but as for the enemies we see here, it's unclear who they work for. And curiously, their main goal might not be to kill you, but instead to steal the cargo off your back. Here, an agent deliberately strikes Sam's pack, knocking loose a small parcel. Sam then risks further injury to retrieve the item before running away. Apparently, this mechanic goes both ways, as Sam is seen here knocking a case off his opponent's back, which he then uses as a weapon. But as in any Kojima game, fighting certain enemies head-on or interacting with them at all is often discouraged in favor of a stealthy approach. According to the previously mentioned description that was deleted from the UK's PlayStation Store, you must, quote, choose your combat methods carefully, as killing your foe is almost never the solution. But even when you're sneaking, it looks as if your enemies will still be able to detect your presence. Here we see a radar pulse approaching Sam, and when it reaches him, it leaves a trace of his location, or rather the location of his pack, presumably for his assailants to track down. Lastly, if you ever find yourself outmatched by a group of humans, it looks like entering a timefall storm might cause them to retreat. Since timefall and BTs seem to go hand in hand, your enemies will call off their pursuit. That said, we still don't know for sure if Sam will be able to safely enter Timefall, but it's likely that eating little creatures called cryptobites might cause temporary immunity. Just watch this clip from the 2018 E3 trailer.
A cryptobite a day keeps the timefall away.
So perhaps keeping some cryptobites handy will give you a way to enter Timefall without instantly celebrating your 150th birthday. Okay, now that we've covered the human threat in Death Stranding, I want to highlight a few monsters that probably don't give you the option to just sneak by. Among the more impressive enemies we've seen in all the Death Stranding trailers is this thing, which was summoned out of thin air by our friend Higgs. And then there's also this guy. It's not confirmed, and I've highlighted this already, but I find it highly likely that both of these monsters come from the alternate realm that Sam visits when he dies. It's also worth mentioning that some theories peg these monsters as BTs, but to me they seem entirely different from those invisible humanoid creatures. As for fighting these monsters, we see Sam face off against this squid-like beast here, and as he does, we get a good look at the combat UI. Notice the handgun is at level 2, indicating that your weapons will level up throughout the game. Just below that, we see Sam's remaining ammo, and below that is a small heart next to a reading that says 820 out of 1,000 milliliters. It looks like the game tracks some sort of fluid that you have to either collect or dispense of in order to level up your weapon. Lastly, you'll be able to change your ammo type by pressing down. Worth mentioning is that this UI appears only when engaged in combat rather than on a persistent HUD, and it's integrated directly into the action. In fact, everything we've seen indicates that Death Stranding will forego a typical HUD in favor of similar UI elements. But if that's the case, then what about a health meter? Well, you might have noticed the blue handcuffs that just about every character seems to be wearing. It looks like that will actually show your health status through various colors. A bright blue glow indicates max health, with the light shifting to orange and eventually red as your health deteriorates. The last type of otherworldly enemies we've seen that aren't BTs are the supernatural/undead soldiers that Cliff seems to control. These guys look pretty easy to pick off, so nothing special to report about them specifically, other than the fact that we haven't seen these enemies outside this World War I setting. In any case, we've waited long enough, let's finally look at the dreaded beached things. As stated at the top of this video, BTs are otherworldly creatures that seem to be an integral part of whatever the Death Stranding is. Aside from the fact that they float and are invisible, they're actually the least threatening looking of all the enemies. That said, if you end up near even just one BT, let alone an entire group, you'll want to stay as stealthy as possible. It appears they can detect motion, sound, and even your breath, and we don't know if you'll be able to fight them or if you'll have to avoid them altogether. But the real question isn't how do they see you, it's how do you see them. This is where the mysterious bridge babies come into play. Assuming you're plugged into a bridge baby, this mechanical arm then seems to detect BTs, enabling you to see their location for a short time. Lastly, the game apparently records your tracks in the form of bright blue footprints, which should help you backtrack if you need to retreat. Similarly, BTs leave bright orange handprints, giving you a handy way, pardon the pun, to avoid their location. What hasn't been explained is how Sam's condition that Fragile referred to as dooms plays into all of this. All we know is that dooms help Sam detect BTs, and it sounds like a condition that Sam can level up, making these encounters more manageable as the game progresses. Regardless, it looks like avoiding these creatures will be a challenging affair, but what happens if you actually get caught? Well, it appears that getting killed by a BT is at least one way the game will trigger a void out, leaving a crater in the place where you died. In most games, this would be game over, or at least a point where your progress would be reset to a previous save. But not in Death Stranding. Instead, Kojima is looking to turn the concept of dying in video games completely on its head. We don't know how many ways you can actually meet your end in Death Stranding, but no matter how you die, the gameplay loop doesn't stop and doesn't reset. Instead, you're somehow transported to this alternate realm. Going back to the same description that was deleted from the UK, the process was described as such. Quote, "Death is not the end. There is no traditional game over state in Death Stranding. Lose your life during combat and you'll find yourself in an upside down realm searching for your way back to the living." End quote. Again, my bet is that this is the same realm that Higgs and Cliff have a connection to and the same realm that the BTs and other creatures call home. But that's just a guess, so take it for what it's worth. Getting back to the facts, we do know a few things about the time you'll spend in this realm. According to an article published by IGN in December of 2017, the player does not inhabit Sam's body during these gameplay segments. Instead, you'll control the camera while you explore and recover certain items before returning to Earth. And when you do reincarnate, the consequences of all your actions remain. Kojima himself has explained what the experience might be like. Quote, "So as you saw in the trailer, you saw the crater, and when you come back, it's still there," he said. "Most games would have taken you back to before the crater was made, so depending on the player, you might have a lot of craters all over the place. Depends on the player." End quote. In other words, all progress you make in Death Stranding and all the effects you have on the world are persistent no matter how many times you die. This is a pretty cool concept, and my hunch is that this continuous process of dying followed by reincarnation might actually be the Death Stranding that was referred to in the game's initial synopsis. But once again, that's just a theory, and whatever this game is about, I'm looking forward to some sort of proper gameplay reveal before its official release on November 8th. But until then, I hope this preview gave you a better idea of what to expect. As always, I encourage everyone to wait until Death Stranding releases and the reviews are out instead of pre-ordering the game, and if you want even more information, you can find all the sources I used to research this preview in the description below. If you enjoyed this video, give me a thumbs up. If you didn't, give me a thumbs down. And if you want to see what games I'm playing or discover hidden gems that I find, follow me on Twitter and Instagram. Lastly, if you never want to miss any of my videos, all it takes is clicking that subscribe button. Until soon, we'll see you next time.